graphing x and y intercepts, this is a review of part 3. In today's lesson, students will review how to graph linear equations by using x and y intercepts. By using what? Very good. So let us review how to graph a linear equation using x and y intercepts. So if we take a look at this graph right here, you have a point, which is 3, which is intersecting what axis is this? This is the x-axis, right? This would be known as an x-intercept. A what? X-intercept. So what does that mean? The x-intercept is the x-coordinate on the, which axis is this again? It's the x-axis, okay? So an x-intercept is actually going to be on the x-axis, or the line would intersect at the x-axis. So let's take a look at what this point might be, okay? We are at 3 on the x-axis, correct? We're at 3. Do we go up or down? We don't go anywhere, right? So what is y then? What is y? Y is 0, okay? So to find an x-intercept, anything on the x-axis is going to have a y coordinate of 0. So to find it, we can substitute 0 for y. Okay. Now let's take a look at the y-intercept. The y-intercept is really, really important because it's how we're going to be graphing lines. So if we see a point that is on the y-intercept, let's say the point is 3, okay? Well, we call that the y-intercept because 3 is the y-coordinate on what axis is this? If it's the y-intercept, it's the y-axis, correct? Okay, so we're on the y-axis. Great. All right, so let's take a look at what this point might be, all right? If we started at x, where x is 0, and we go up 3, what do we call this point? We call it what? 0, comma, what do we call it? 0, 3, correct? That's right. And that's because our x-coordinate is 0, but our y-coordinate is 3. So the y-intercept can be found by substituting. What are we going to substitute? 0 for x. Okay? All right, cool. Now, how do we use intercepts? Basically, we're going to use intercepts. Let's write the word intercepts. Intercepts. Okay, you have an x-intercept and y-intercept. To graph a line in standard form. So standard form is a form that you might not be familiar with. So it goes like this, okay? Usually you have you have a coefficient. The coefficient is the letter a, right? And that's being multiplied by x. And then you add b to it. B is another coefficient, or a number, multiplied by y, and it equals c, all right? So we're usually not used to seeing it this way. We're used to seeing y equals x, right? Because that's slope-intercept form. But this is standard form. When you see a line like this, for example, 2x plus, let's say 4y equals 8, this is standard form. When you see it like this and it's set up, it's very easy then to go ahead and plug in 0 for x to find the y-intercept, which here would be 2, or to plug in 0 for y to find the x-intercept, where x, if you divided both sides by 2, would be 4, okay? So we're going to go ahead and use a table to find x and y intercepts. Go ahead and get that down. So let's review how to use a linear equation and x and y intercepts to graph a line, okay? So you're gonna see a table like this, and then it says intercept, but don't be confused, because if x is 0, am I talking about the x-intercept? No. If I don't want x, I want y, okay? So the y-intercept, to be clear, is where x is 0. So we're really finding the y-intercept right here, okay? We do this by substituting 0 in the place of x. So why don't we put parentheses around the x? Parentheses tell you to do what? They tell you to multiply, all right? So if 0 is x, and we say, okay, -2 times 0, and then we add 4y to that, plus 4y equals 12. Okay, we can't stop here. So what is -2 times 0? Any number times 0 is 0. So when I ask you what's -2 times 0, don't tell me -2. Because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So we're going to show that now by crossing it off, which means it's not even there anymore, okay? So -2 times 0 is 0. It's gone, right? What are we left with? We're left with 4y equals 12, right? So from this point right here, if 4 times some number is 12, yeah? What is the opposite of multiplication? It's division, right? So when you see 4 times y equals 12, we're thinking, okay, we have to do the opposite. So we're going to divide both sides by what? We're going to divide both sides by, remember this? We're going to divide by 4. Yeah? So what does y equal then? Y is going to equal, what's 12 divided by 4? 12 divided by 4 is 3. Very good. So y would equal 3. And remember that x is 0, correct? X is 0. So there's our coordinate point. We're going to graph that right here. Let's go ahead. Remember, just like in the example, right? If I start at 0, x is 0, and I go up 1, 2, 3, I'm right here at 0, 3. So go ahead and graph that point, 0, 3. All right? That's the y-intercept. It's the what? Y-intercept, because it's going, the line is going to go through 3 on the y-axis. Okay. So we already found the y-axis. What do we want next? We want the x-axis, correct. And remember, for the x-axis, y has to be 0. So we're going to take the same equation, but this time, are we going to put parentheses around x or parentheses around y? We're going to put it around y, correct. Okay? So I'm going to put them around y, and here we go. This time, I'm going to have -2x, I'm looking for what is the x-axis, but I'm going to add 4 times what? What am I putting in the place of y? I'm putting what? I'm putting 0. Can you see that? Okay. 4 times 0. All right. So 4 times 0. And it's still going to equal 12, isn't it? Cool. Now, what can I cross out now? If I made y 0, what's 4 times 0? What's 4 times 0? It's not 4. Yes, it's 0. So I'm going to show that it is 0 by crossing it out. And then what I'm going to have to write is -2x equals 12 right here, okay? -2x equals 12. Cool. What do I have to now divide both sides by? If -2 times x equals 12, what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. I want to divide both sides by -2. And when I do that, who do you have to remember? You have to remember Bob. He says a negative divided by a positive is what? What's his mouth? Negative, okay? So remember that -2 divided by -2 is 1. You can go ahead and cross them off like this. And we're going to write that x equals, what does x equal again? X equals, come on. Yes, negative 6. And if you put that in your calculator, you would write 12 divided by 2 negative. Gives you negative 6. So negative 6 equals what? It equals x. So we're going to write it here in the x column. And remember what y is? Y is 0, correct. So that's an ordered pair, right? Yep. So where is negative 6, 0? Let's make sure we can find that. Negative 6, 0. If we started on the x-axis right here, okay? We started on the x-axis. We're going to go to negative 6, so that's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. All right, there's negative 6. And I'm not going to go up or down. I'm going to be right at 0. You with me? Okay, so now we have negative 6, which is the x-intercept, and we have 3, which is the y-intercept. Remember, how many points do you need to make a line? You only need 2 points. And so this line is going to look like this. It is going to intersect the x-axis and also going to intersect the y-axis. And remember to make arrows going in both directions, okay? Take a look at that. Get that down. So let's take a look at our last example, example number 2. The linear equation says, read it with me, it says 3x minus 2y equals negative 6. So we're going to find the y-intercept first and then the x-intercept. So we're always going to start with y. Why? Because it's important, okay? So we're going to make x 0. When we make x 0, we can put parentheses around our x, and we can say 3 times 0 minus 2y now equals a negative 6. Great. So this is set up to where if we know 3 times 0, what's 3 times 0? If you learn anything this week, could it please be to multiply by 0? When you multiply any number times 0, you get 0. Now cross it out, okay? So now we're left with negative 2y equals negative 6, right? It's saying negative 2 times a number gives me negative 6. What's that number? Anybody know? When you divide both sides by negative 2, what do you get? Well, let's think. Here's Bob, okay? He says a negative divided by a negative is positive. Exactly. So negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. And we say y equals positive 3. All right. So remember, x is 0, and y is positive 3. Okay, so we have the same y-intercept in both examples. Did you notice that? Do you know how to graph 0, 3 yet? You start at 0. Where do you start? 0, and you go up how many? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's 0, 3 right there. That's the y-intercept, okay? All right, next one, okay? Now we're going to make y equals to 0, so we could put parentheses around y, okay, if that helps you, to show you that this is multiplication. Are you understanding that? Yeah? Okay, but because we're always multiplying 0, we end up crossing out y when we're trying to look for the x-intercept now. All right, so I'm going to write 3x, yep, minus 2 times 0 equals negative 6. Okay, are we good with that? All right. So what is negative 2 times 0? Anybody? Negative 2 times 0, it's 0. Cross it out. You're left with 3x equals negative 6. What are you supposed to do to both sides of this equation? Right? This is being multiplied. What's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. We show division with a line. We're saying I'm going to divide this side by 3 and this side by 3. But I'm really dividing by a positive 3. So let me ask you, what's a negative divided by a positive? What's negative divided by positive? Negative divided by positive is negative. That's right. So x is going to equal what? What's negative 6 divided by 3? Yeah, it's negative 2, right? Cool. So here, I found x as negative 2, and again, y has to be 0 because this gives me an x-intercept. So I'm going to go on the x-axis, okay? Now, I need to go where x is -2. So I'm going to go over to -2 and put my coordinate point. That coordinate point is known as -2, 0. Are we okay with that? Okay. So when you have 2 points, you can make a line. Correct, you can make a line. So this is why it becomes important to use a ruler. We're going to go ahead and put a line through both of those points with arrows showing opposite directions. So go ahead and get that down.